You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hello, Mavs fans. I'm Kirk Henderson, and I'm joined by Josh Bowe. Welcome to Pod Maverick. It's about 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, February 25th. The Dallas Mavericks just lost to the Los Angeles Lakers, 107-99. Josh, how you doing?
Doing good. This is going to be a weird podcast, I feel like.
I mean, every fucking show we've done for a month has been weird.
Yeah, so I apologize if it does, if it comes off as weird.
Like I hate this. This is awful, and I don't know how to talk about this in any sort of rational way. Sports, and you and I kind of talked about this last show. And Timmy, I love you to pieces, man. But I want to talk about the basketball, and I just don't think we're gonna be allowed. I don't know how we do this for a longer period of time, because until Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd are no longer associated with this team, there's just this big specter of stupidity that hovers over this entire conversation that we're going to have to ignore for long stretches. And I don't know how to do it. This game tonight, the first half was horrible. It was a horrible game of basketball. And thank God the second half happened where an actual basketball game broke out and we had some fun and it was weird. And then the Mavericks died. Like they absolutely died. And I'm not mad at the Mavericks as players whatsoever. Maybe PJ Washington a little bit. My brother in Christ hit a layup. But this is so hard for me to talk about. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. I guess we could just start with the weirdness of the moment and maybe work our way into the game, how the actual game played out there. But it was so weird to just be like watching. And remember how like last year during the playoffs, I would kind of go on these little tangents about like, obviously, I'm not like rooting for the other team to win, but I would just be like, why are these other coaching staff so stupid with how they guard Luka? Because I feel like we've kind of
great place to start, man.
Yeah, I don't want to say wrote the book. This isn't the be all end all, but I feel like we have enough data on Luka to know what the best options of a bad hand is dealt, because you're dealt a bad hand when you have to guard Luka. There's no like foolproof option. And it's just weird to be on the other, like watching this game and being like, the Mavericks need to let Luka play one-on-one and stay at home to role players and stop putting two on the ball. And then I'm like, I have to like, wait, what? Am I really saying that? Like, I know he's been off the team for about 3 weeks now, but just being faced with the reality in game and just like the fact that I'm thinking that thought is just so bizarre. And it's just so funny that like we talked about that all playoffs about like, why do coaches do this? Why do they double Luka? Because it feels like the most surefire way to lose a basketball game when you're playing against a team with Luka Doncic. And then now to be on the other end of it, where now the team that I cover is now the one that's doing this because they don't have Luka anymore. That just kind of summed up how bizarre it felt and how weird it is to talk about. And it just kind of, reopened some things I feel about this trade. And, I talked about, I think about like how I don't know how the franchise and the fan base is really going to recover. And I don't mean, I said that on Twitter. And of course I had people that were like, oh, well, they can still be a contender. And I'm like, I get it, but it's not about that. It's about everything else. It's about how people feel about the product and the community around the team and the relevance of the team going forward. Like they could win a title this year or next year. And I still think that my points still stand. Like there's just a weirdness that is around it. And I think because you're more fan than me. And I think you've made good points about it, how like, when the games are going on, you usually feel better. But when the games are not going on, you're a consumer of the product.
I'm in a horrible headspace almost all the time. And I actually want to circle back to that, but I do think we owe it to our group to talk about the game. And I think the doubling of Luka is a great starting point.
That's why they lost.
It is specifically why they lost. PJ being ass was shocking, but it was not like they had a chance despite PJ being ass. Kyrie was incredible. I was like, there was some wild Spencer Dinwiddie play. Like there was just a lot of positive contributions, but then the Mavericks hard doubling of Luka. What planet are we on? Like Luka has, so let's just be clear here. I love Luka Doncic like he is my third child. I was a fan of him longer than almost every single person that watches him, particularly in the Mavs fandom. That's just like, sorry, I have the receipts. But the way to guard him when he does not have his legs is to dare him to shoot, okay? Dare him to make and to score over you. Luka Doncic tonight was 6 of 17 from the floor and 1 of 7 from 3. You want him taking shots when he is this kind of ass. Like he took he had one of those nice little crafty moves at the rim. And I remember it was like the second half where he gets like right in that 6 to 8 foot range and leaves it short off the front of the rim. He just doesn't have his legs yet. That is what it is. So you want him doing that stuff. You want him orchestrated. You want to dare him to make plays. So he made plays all right with 12 assists and just punishing the Mavericks by making the right play over and over and over again. And Bernardo in the chat says, Kirk, they were afraid he would embarrass them. Well, guess what? He embarrassed them. You don't play Luka with fear. If you give in, like I'm going to sound like somebody from Dune talking about the sisterhood. you don't give in to the fear of wondering if Luka's going to kick your ass, because if that lives in your head, he's already fucking beat you. And the coaching staff and everyone else the preparation for this game was, okay, we don't want Luka to we don't want to lose to Luka. So instead you lose to the Lakers. Like what? The chess game here, it didn't exist. And so by pushing, like I actually don't mind soft doubles of Luka. I don't mind sending people at him at odd times. Hard doubles of Luka early in the clock are stupid. They don't work. And you and I have spent the better part of 2 years, maybe even 3 years, going back to 2021-22, cackling about when teams would think, you know what? We're going to let Luka pass to a wide open NBA player to shoot the basket. That was crazy to me.
Yeah. And I mean, the Lakers built a 16-point lead in the first half, and then they win by 8. So the Mavericks outscored them by 8 points from that point to the rest of the game. And that's kind of when they stopped doing it. And they started doing some different defensive coverages on Luka. So they get in this 16-point hole with this defensive strategy that we know can't work. And then they lose by 8 points. And it's like, I understand that it was a 1-point game at various points in the fourth quarter, and there were plays in the fourth quarter that could have gone their way that might have swung them the game. And you could say, that's why they lost. They lost because they got down 16 playing a very dumb defensive strategy against Luka. Like that's why they lost. Like because they recovered very well after that when they.
So let's talk about that then.
Normally. Yeah.
How in the world did the Mavericks get back into this? Because I don't have the shooting stats offhand. The first half, I feel as if the Mavericks shot the ball horribly.
Well, they got back into it because they stopped doubling Luka. They switched more, and then they did a little bit what Boston did in the finals, where if you don't switch, you don't hard trap on the pick and roll, but you kind of send them, like you said, you don't hard trap them out near the 3-point line right off the pick and roll. You kind of send someone late and from an odd angle from a place that he's not necessarily expecting the help. They did a little bit more of that in the second half, so that helped them get into it. And then offensively, it one of the most hilarious offensive games I've seen this team ever play.
Why?
I can't do the math in my head right now, but they shot 38. They shot.
You see this stat from Bill Alien? First quarter non-Kyrie Irving shots were 2 of 18.
They shot 35% from the floor overall, but they shot 38% from 3. I think they shot like 32. I will add it up when you start talking again, but they shot like 32% on 2-pointers. On 2-pointers.
The max.
If you shoot 40% on 2-pointers, that is a bad night. They were below 35% on 2-pointers.
So I'll let you do the math. PJ Washington was 0 of 7 from 2. Kessler Edwards 2 of 4. Kyrie Irving was 7 of 16 from 2. That's pretty brutal. Klay Thompson was 3 of 7, which, okay, you live with that. Max Christie was 2 of 9 from 2-point range. Najee Marshall was he only 1 of 2. That seems right. Yeah, 1 of 2. And that's just kind of where Dante Exum was 1 of 3, no 1 of 2. So it's the guys that are actually pretty good at 2-point shots didn't. Yeah, this is a great comment from Harmon. The Mavs couldn't finish their dinner. Great line. I like that. Pretty brutal.
33%, 33.3% on 2s. They were 18 of 54 on 2.
Thank you.
They were 10 of 24 at the restricted area. That's 41.7%. That's hard to do if you tried.
That's Golden State Warriors-y. Before they had Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, it's horrendous. And a lot of it wasn't even not even great Lakers defense. So it just makes it really inexplicable. And it kind of goes to show just, the team is small. So that's part of it. Obviously they're not going to shoot that poorly on 2-pointers if you have Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford playing, because those guys are not going to shoot poorly around the rim. So, they play 5 out, and they were only in this game because they were making pretty much all their 3-pointers, and the Lakers were missing most of their 3-pointers. So, felt like a very old, 4 years ago Mavs kind of game where it was they shouldn't be winning, but they're making more threes than their opponent, so they're in it. Of course they are. And they just didn't have enough left in the tank.
The second half was really impressive and really fun. I was actually kind of worried because, I don't want to talk solely narrative stuff. I want to do our best to talk about the basketball at hand. So to have some actual basketball to talk about was pretty fun. Like Klay Thompson.
They ran stuff for Klay.
Was
they
great.
Had some good
it was
sets.
fun to watch.
Yeah, they killed them on off-ball sets. The offense was hilarious in the second half and part of the first half. I mean, the Mavericks they were running some sets for Klay, like very specific sets, but when they weren't doing that for Klay, whether it was out of a timeout or in a half court, if it wasn't a play for Klay, a set play for Klay, I can't talk tonight.
That's right.
Their offense was literally just, okay, who's guarding Austin Reeves? Who's guarding Luka?
Yeah.
Set a screen for Kyrie.
Yeah.
That was their offense. And it kind of worked. I mean, Kyrie had a game high 35 points. He ran out of steam in the fourth quarter because he had I think he had maybe like one or two potential assisted bucket chances. Like his usage rate was astronomical. I don't know what it is right now, but it had to have been astronomical. I mean, he took 27 shots tonight, and I would say 25 of them felt like totally self-created attempts. Like they put everything on him to do stuff, and he kind of had to because I mean, look at the roster. Like who else is going to do it? Like that's the roster. Like there's a part of it where it's like, yeah, Gafford and Lively coming back helps, but those guys aren't going to change that much. Obviously, Anthony Davis will help, but that's creation from kind of a different, like, even then he still gets most of his baskets are assisted. Like it's going to be hard for Kyrie. And even that first game with Anthony Davis against Houston, Kyrie was shot 4-15 from the floor. Like that's kind of the thing to watch is just, can they get enough out of Kyrie without Luka? Because Kyrie historically has been at his best when he's playing next to another high leverage creator, whether that's LeBron in Cleveland, or Kevin Durant and James Harden in Brooklyn when he had some really good years in Brooklyn. And those have been his best years. He had a couple of good years in Boston, of course, but he's body has picked up some miles. He's had some more injuries since those Boston years. So he's, it's just different. So it was a hell of an effort, and he had some really nice highlight shots. Man, he had a 3-pointer, I think, in the fourth quarter where he kind of did an inside-out dribble against Austin Reeves and got himself in a wide-open three. He had a really nice baseline jumper, again kind of leaving Austin Reeves in the dust. So that was fun, and like you said, the Klay show was fun. But otherwise, it was tough to watch offensively. Like, yeah, the PJ Washington 0 for 9 was tough. And Max Christie, like, not his fault. Like he was making so many pull-up self-created twos. Like that's not necessarily in his bag right now. Like it was kind of amazing that he was doing that. So he came back down to earth a little bit, but that's okay. Like that's not a big deal. So
no, you're starting to see the limits of, and this is where
limits. That's
being highly critical of this team is not fair.
No.
And there was actually, you know what? Let's go to break and then we'll talk about it on the flip side. Guys, so I'm just going to be real quick here. You guys know we have our podcast sponsor, Body Spec. They are a company which we have been partnering with for a couple of months now. If you like our podcast, I really recommend going and getting a body scan. It is helpful. The DEXA scan is really informative and can put you in a better place as you try to figure out sort of where you are with your fitness journey. If you use the code PODMAVS45, you'll get $15 off a scan. Tell you what, guys, the price of this scan cannot be beat on the market. Gives you a lot of usable information. And if you're anywhere near Josh and I's age, let's just say you're in your 30s to 40s, it's recommended. I really mean it. I'm going to go ahead and insert some ads here for our podcast. If you guys want to, that we have to do for Blue Wire, if you guys want to go ahead and listen to those, that also helps us out. I know it's sometimes a little bit boring, but so we go. We'll be right back.
Planning any exciting trips this year? I bet something you might not be planning is learning the local language. Well, with Babbel, you only need a few weeks to learn. This year, speak like a whole new you with Babbel, the language learning app that gets you talking. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. My wife and I are planning to visit Canada, and my French is rusty. I'm refreshing what I learned way back in high school and training my pronunciation and accent with Babbel's speech recognition technology too. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/bluewire. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/bluewire. Spelled BABBEL.com/bluewire. Babbel.com/bluewire. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Love, exciting and new.
Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever.
It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships at Bermudan and British Registry.
Thanks so much for hanging out. For those of you who are audio listeners, our YouTube live listeners, we appreciate you hanging with us. I'm going to be doing a post show, the one where you can join and yell at me if you so desire. It'll be a group therapy. Not really had one of those since the Luka trade, just because I didn't really have the juice. But I'm awake now. We're going to hang out. You guys, I'll post that towards the end of the show. Anybody listening on the audio feed, that'll get posted a little later Wednesday afternoon. Josh and I are going to keep talking here for a few minutes, and Josh is going to go to bed. What was I going to talk about before I went to break?
Oh boy. I was talking about how bad you were talking about, like, you can't.
Oh yeah. Kind of
the
team is sort of hitting the, like, obviously an NBA team is not going to shoot 36% from the floor. Like, I don't really feel that the Lakers there's a big jerk off motion about the Lakers defense as of late. Like, I'm not interested in this team being a real Western Conference competitor. Like, Luka and LeBron are great, but they look way too much like the 2021-22 Lakers. They really do. Not Lakers, Mavericks. To where they're going to be reliant on certain things, mainly their stars getting hot. That's not to say that Luka and LeBron can't get hot. It's just a lot to ask. And so as a result, I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it. That said, the Lakers also aren't going to shoot 27% from three like they did tonight. The Mavericks just kind of are running into the limits of what a team minus Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, who else is injured?
Gafford.
And then Caleb Martin. Like, that's 3.5 rotation players, 4 rotation players. Like, it's hard to be expecting it. Like, the Max Christie stuff, I have long-term high hopes for Max Christie. If they need him to play well every night, that's not fair. It's not fair to him.
Right. And when you say play well, like, if they need him to do self-creation, pull up 2-pointers.
Yes.
And again,
and
he was on
all
a heater.
His 2-pointers. And it's not fair.
Right. Because yeah, exactly. He was a 2nd-round pick. He's in his 3rd year. He's having let's just let him be him. You know what I mean? Like, let's not prescribe something on him that he doesn't need right now. I thought another part of the game was interesting, getting to watch this up close, talking more about the game and talking about the Lakers part of it, is LeBron was incredible in the 4th quarter.
Oh my God. He had only scored 11 points through 3 quarters, and he finished with 27.
Yeah. And a big part of this trade, and it's really funny because it's like, because you looked at LeBron before this trade, and not to say that he was bad. Obviously, he wasn't bad, but he was finally starting to look a little bit more like a 40-year-old NBA player, even though he was still putting up ridiculous numbers. But you were finally like getting to a point where it was like, okay, we can't, Lakers people were like, he can't keep doing it. Like, he's still our best creator. He's still, because even with Anthony Davis on the team, again, Anthony Davis is still more of a shot finisher than a shot creator. Like, LeBron has still been the primary number one, offensive creator, point guard of the team.
Yep.
And you were starting to see the limits of it. No fault of LeBron, obviously. He's freaking 40 and he's still awesome. And you look at it, and now they add Luka. And you look at how LeBron's able to pick his spots because Luka can run the show. And Luka was running the offense and got them up 16 in the first half. And LeBron is just kind of hanging out. And by the way, he's playing some defense because he doesn't have to expend all his energy on self-creating or creating for his teammates every time he's going up and down the floor. And now it's the fourth quarter, and maybe Luka doesn't have it because he's still coming back from his almost 2-month-long absence and his calf injury and all that. Okay, now it's LeBron's turn, and he's fresh because he hasn't been grounded into dust in the first three quarters, being asked to do absolutely everything for the team. And you saw that, and he went to work, and it's just funny seeing that against the Mavericks because you look at Kyrie coming up short in the fourth quarter through no fault of his own, much like how it wasn't LeBron's fault. When he was, wearing down a little bit towards the end of games because he didn't have the on-ball creation help to free him up off ball a little bit more to save his legs. Yep. And it's just funny that they just like the Lakers are now benefiting from the thing the Mavericks benefited last year that helped get them to the finals, and why Kyrie has been so good since coming to Dallas because he got to play so much off ball next to an offensive centerpiece like Luka. And now he doesn't have Luka, and it's not his fault.
Nope.
But it's just like, that was kind of the story of the fourth quarter to me. It was like one aging great superstar doesn't have a running mate to help take the load off. And I don't think that's changing a lot when Davis comes back. Obviously different things will change for the better, but in terms of Kyrie's individual performance, it will still be pretty hard for him because Davis just isn't that type of relief that like Luka was or LeBron was for him when Kyrie was in Cleveland.
Yep. Not to be too bleak about it, the March 6th update is going to tell us a lot. Someone in the chat asked when we're going to hear more about the various injuries, and they've set this odd specific deadline of March 6th. The Mavericks still have 4 games, maybe 5 games before March 6th. That will determine, I think, a lot because the Mavericks are now 3 games above 500. If they happen to lose the next 3 or 4 games, I think that sort of dictates what will happen next. Now, if you look at the NBA picture at large, and we're going to have to start covering this closely at Mavs Moneyball just because I think there'll be interest. The Mavericks, I don't really see how they slip down past 10th. The Suns are
they're making the plan.
They're making the play-in. It's a question of where. So if they make it as the 10th seed, in order to become a playoff eligible team, they have to beat whoever is in 9th, which would send them packing. And then they would have to beat the winner or the loser of the 7th-8th matchup. I'm pretty sure is how that goes. I'm honestly not paid that much attention.
No, that's right. You're right.
So winning 2 straight games against higher seeded teams. Now
they'd both be road games too if they're the 10th.
They would both be road games, and the teams we're talking about right now, let's just group them all together: Clippers, Wolves, Warriors, Kings. That's kind of your group. It's tough. Now, we just don't know enough about these injuries. AD could come back. I saw somebody in the moment or in the chat comment about how they think he might play because he's doing some pregame stuff. I don't have a good enough take. I do know that the kind of surgery he would get would be very similar to what Damian Lillard got several years ago. And Dame's had no problems since he had the surgery. And so I sort of think the Mavericks, if they look at the way they're going, they just be like, all right, Anthony, you need to get this done. Because otherwise, this is going to continue to plague you, no matter how much rest you get.
But they've also reached the point where there's no point in him getting it now.
That's right,
because he's going to miss the rest of the season.
So why not try?
Yeah, right.
That's sort of where he's set. And then the Lively injury update is the most interesting to me because I honestly just don't know enough. He's 21 years old, and youths have bones made out of adamantium, so he could survive things and come back easier. Gafford is kind of the one that I'm very frustrated with the Mavericks because if he does have a grade 3 MCL sprain, which is effectively an MCL tear, he's going to miss every single game for the rest of the regular season. He might play in the playoffs. And so like the sort of dancing around that is pissing me off because it's hope that is likely not there. And if he does come back, let's just say it's another 18 games, everything's going to be decided by then. Like he's not making the difference between them being a 7 seed versus a 10 seed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. That was a pretty rough injury for him.
It was. I mean, it looked horrible.
The
fact that he wasn't immediately ruled out, like, is the only thing that gives me some hope. And again, like, you know, I waffle on this, like, and I think now is like when we kind of pivot to the big picture.
Yep.
I have a hard time with this because I am still like very emotionally attached. I don't like how I am reminded of this trade at every minute of every day. And that's not hyperbole. It is everywhere around us. It is in social media posts, team posts, Twitter, my day-to-day life. People that forget that you chatting with somebody, a neighbor on the street that knows that I do this will bring it. And it's like, I can't avoid it. And I mean, not to be like emotional about it because that's not right. It's not exactly how it is for me, but it's a pain point and it pushes me from the game. And the challenging part about this, and I said this earlier, is this will not be done for me. It will not truly be done for me until Jason Kidd and Nico Harrison are no longer with the Mavericks. That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's kind of what I talked about before. Is I don't like just the reminder. It was a lot easier to not think about it when he's not on the floor, and so maybe the next game the Mavericks play, it should be easier because he's not going to be on the floor constantly reminding you. But presumably he's gonna stay in LA, and the Mavericks are going to play against him 3 to 4 times a season for
the next
like 10 years. Like, that's tough. And he's going to be, if he's in LA, like he's not in Charlotte. Like he is going to be on every commercial. He's going to be in every all-star game. He's going to be on national TV. Like the Lakers played like 35 national TV games before they got LeBron when they were kind of crappy. Like he is going to be on their national TV all the time. So if you're trying to like ignore it and be like, I don't want to watch Mavericks basketball, but I'm just going to try to watch whatever's on ESPN or NBC or Prime, I guess now, because it's not going to be a TNT next year. You flip on a national TV game next season, it's probably the chances are very high it's going to be Luka and the Lakers playing. So it's like you can't get away from it. And that's just kind of what I've been like trying to process tonight is like, even if the Mavericks, like, it's not about, are the Mavericks still a contender? Like, yeah, I think when Lively and Gafford and Anthony Davis and Caleb Martin, if those guys can all get back and they can play, a playoff run all healthy, I think they can be a contender. Wrote about it. We've talked about it, but they've done something where that I don't think that matters that much anymore. And there's going to be some people where it does matter. So I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel like they've just kind of rocked the community to such a degree that like right now it's like this emotional reaction, and eventually that's going to fade away with time. It won't be as hostile and it won't be as I don't know how to say it, just fiery, like the reaction. But when that's gone, it's going to probably be replaced with apathy and irrelevance. And that doesn't change, even if they win a title. Like, I don't know if that changes things that much, because this team, this core has a very limited shelf life. They don't have any draft. Like, it's hard enough to draft the next Luka or the next Dirk, even if you have all your draft picks and then some. They they don't have a draft. Like they don't control their own draft really till like 2031, 2032. Like they got pick swaps. They owe first rounders. Like once the AD and Kyrie are going to be 37 years old when Luka is 30. Like, are they even still going to be on the team? Are they still even going to be the players that they can be? So while Luka is still relevant and in the MVP conversation and dominating the national scene, so long as nothing, knock on wood, bad happens to him health wise or off the court, like he's not going away, and it's going to be like shoving the Mavericks fans' faces in it for 10 years. And then the team has nothing really to combat it because they can't even rebuild because they traded all their draft picks to build the contending team around Luka. So it's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, they can they can maybe be a championship team with Anthony Davis and Kyrie for these next 2 seasons if they're healthy.
Well, it's worth
that matters to the broad. Like, this feels bigger than that.
So, okay, we have a lot of people in the chat, and I'm just sort of mixing things up here. I'm just going to go forth with this. If you don't think Jason Kidd was involved in a decision tree that involves Nico Harrison, Michael Finley, probably their chief cap guy, and that would be it.
Got another guy from the Nets, Riccardi.
Yeah, like
he's up there in the front office. Matt
I just I have some land to sell you. Now, if you read Miran Fader's book about Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Kidd comes off as a total fucking psychopath. Don't care. What is he going to do? Is he going to come to my house and yell at me? Is he going to follow me on Twitter and yell at me from one of his weird Twitter burner accounts? That is a thing that happens. Like, Kidd is like he's a crazy person. I'm sorry, he just is. Like, you read this book and he has learned to conceal his behavior. When he was with the Bucks, he was so blatant with how he did things that eventually it got gross and he got pushed out. I don't really care who is ultimately responsible, but you just have to say Nico, Kidd, Patrick Dumont, all of these people made this decision together, and there's only a limited number of people that can actually be pushed out of this situation. So I get no rest and no real satisfaction until they're gone. Because the way I see this going is, and okay, Adam, like, look, man, if you don't want to believe, don't believe. If you don't want to believe me, don't believe me. That's fine. If it makes you feel better that Jason Kidd, noted crazy person with history of wild ass behavior, if that's not something you want to believe, I get it. Sometimes we don't look at things. We don't want to admit the truth because it hurts too much. But I'll tell you what, we're stuck with what we're stuck with. And where we're heading is an offseason where the Mavericks make a real play for Kevin Durant. That's the other thing. The Mavericks are going to make a real play for Kevin Durant. That sounds fascinating on paper from a basketball fan point of view. Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant. Like, right? I mean, like, you can't ignore.
No, that would help keep them relevant. But again, Durant, how old is Durant?
So 35? That's where the flip side is, where it's
there's a shelf life no matter what they do.
For 15 games, those 3 players are going to be like, we're going to be dancing in the streets because that's, and I'm not sure about the zero depth thing, Jordan. They might not have any trade flexibility because it's like, you can kind of get there with PJ Gafford and one more person, probably their draft pick and one more person. And if you don't think that's happening, I get it, but I'm saying that's where this is pointing.
They're going to try. I don't know if it will happen, but they're going to try. They're going to put all their eggs into that basket. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because what else are you going to do? They don't have any draft. They don't have any
right. They have this draft pick. They have the 2027 draft pick. So like they could theoretically pick someone at the behest of the Suns, send them to there's just a lot that they could do. Right. It gets a little goofy. The NBA, the Stepien rule is pretty easily bypassed with some work. They still own, I'm pretty sure they still own their 2031 pick. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
I thought
they do own the 2029 Lakers pick, which is something. And so there's there's just enough basketball stuff going on the fringes to like make this interesting for the short term kind of I don't know what you want to call it, like the sugar boost. Like I can't really think of the right word for that, but like the quick hit feeling of endorphins to keep it interesting with this Mavericks team. But again, I don't have like and lots of people are like, well, Kirk, do you know? Well, no, I don't have evidence, but I do have eyes and I can read spreadsheets. And you know, KD's a Nike guy. Like there's a lot of stuff here. Like, why would you not go for Kevin Durant if he's interested? Like, why would you not? He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Also, though, you know, as interesting as it would be, and as much as it makes sense as the kind of the conclusion of this road, Nico has put himself down. Man, Kevin Durant, since he left Golden State, does not on-court track record in terms of production is awesome, but team success track record has been bleak. I don't know if it's fair to tie all that to him, but I guess if you wanted to put a negative, but now we're talking about a trade that hasn't even happened.
No. But I'm just saying it's like there's just like a palpable, and I'm going to get over it. This was a big first step. This Lakers game was a big first step.
Are you going to get over it? That's the thing that I'm asking. I don't know.
No,
I don't know. Yeah.
No, I'm not. But
like, are you going to like the NBA as in 5 years? Are you going to like the NBA as much as you did 5 years ago?
No. I wrote that in my letter. They've irreparably done something to me in a thing that I can't get back.
Yeah.
Like they have ruined an element of basketball for me that I don't know if I'm going to be able to find again.
Yeah. And what I'm talking about, it's not even like you, like I hate to bring you up as an example, but you're just a great example of this because like you consume, like you don't just read about the Mavericks. You've got friends that like, and I think you said, I can't remember if it was in Slack. You're like, I'm not listening to podcasts. I'm not reading stuff that I normally would read or going to sites that I would like. You're just like, when the game isn't on, you're like, I'm not even thinking about it. When 3 weeks ago, this is kind of like, you know, it was always somewhere near the top of your mind, obviously not to an unhealthy degree, but
sure.
You know what I mean? Like you know, that's the part of it that like winning a title, I don't know if that changes things because I don't think you're alone in that, and that people feel this apathy about the game itself and their fandom toward it. Not just the Mavericks, just like got people that are like, I don't know when I'm going to turn on an NBA game like consistently going forward. And that's like, I don't know how you change that, you know?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, a large part of why I've decided to kind of keep pressing on with this is I think there's like, I need it. Kind of a weird thing to say. Like I feel, is that correct? I've greatly enjoyed the community, the friends I've made and things like that. And so I've sort of decided to stick with it. Like we had one of our longtime contributors. We just decided to part ways with him today because he was having a hard time. And this trade was a real reason of why he was having a hard time. And he just decided to hang it up. And we agreed. We're like, this is for the best because you don't like this anymore. And it's tough because you hate to see that. And it feels so weird being emotional about this. It really does. But it hasn't happened before.
Right. So what do you compare it to? Yeah.
Yeah. It hasn't happened. And so it's okay to like feel how you want to feel, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, for me, I think this game was a milestone. The April 9th game is a milestone. The off season will be a milestone. And the further you get away from it, the easier, or at least the calluses that have formed will allow elements of that to sort of take over. Once these milestones have passed, I mean, there are going to be more players. There's going to be different things to be interested in. Like we've talked about this, like the basketball of what the team that Nico has envisioned. While I disagree with him in terms of talking about the basketball, there's some interesting things to go on. You know,
yeah, they're kind of a weird team.
Yeah, like we could have fun coming in here and
They're
talk,
a unique team. That's
like
all.
there's from a content creation perspective, there's a real value in bitching about completely new things. Like there's been a problem, and this is like not a big problem, but it's like Luka-led basketball teams for the past 4 years. Josh and I have about 30 games every year where it's like, what are we gonna what? It's the same shit. What are we gonna talk about? Now it's like a whole new flavor. So we have different stuff, and we'll keep going. I will eventually stop being mad all the time. This was a step, losing to them and just kind of, seeing Luka screaming at everyone.
Was it better for you? Like I expected them to lose this game pretty much no matter what, but is it better that it went like this and Luka kind of had, I mean, Luka still had a pretty good game, but he didn't have a meteoric, like, would you have preferred he just scored like 50 and they lost by like 25? Like, or does that even matter? Does it
I'm glad we had actual basketball stuff to talk about. Yeah, Matt, JB in the chat says Mavs kept it close.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and that helps. I actually think that's a good thing. Because like coming in here and lamenting about Luka, you get the occasional fan. There's a guy in there earlier who just said something to the effect of like, we got to move on. And it's like, gosh, you just can't. Like it's a specter that's going to hover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, that's a long time. When I host a Mavs party, or not a Mavs party, a group therapy, where people can come talk and kind of fire off some takes for 20 to 30 minutes, and then we can go to bed. Josh, you should go to bed if you want to publish stuff. I didn't publish anything.
I'll get to that.
We'll be right back here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. This has been Pod Maverick After Dark. God, I sound like I smoked a 6-pack of cigarettes. I'm not like crying or anything. I don't know what's going on with my voice. Maybe allergies that time of year. But
yep.
yeah. All right, we'll be right back. Thanks so much. Go Mavs.